2, 1. Welcome everyone to the Cabinet meeting for February, and the main item on the Cabinet, of course, will be the budget for the Cabinet. But firstly, we move on to the agenda items. 1, apologies. Have we any apologies? No one's indicating, so no apologies received. Item 2 is declarations. Are any declarations needed to be made? I have one hand raised, which is Councillor Munsif Dad.
Yes, thank you, Miles. As I'm a member of the Hyndburn Leisure, items number 6, and also the financial items, capitals and revenues, I just want to declare a non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dad, for that. I think that concludes declarations. We then move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting, outlined in the agenda pack. I formally move those minutes. Have I a seconder?
I'll second those, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. Are there any matters arising from the minutes outlined in the minute book? No one is indicated, so it's been moved and seconded. If no one else indicates, I'll move that we've all accepted that. I'll just wait for that. So they have been moved, seconded and approved by the Cabinet. The next item is item 4, urgent decisions, which is highlighted in the agenda pack. I'm quite happy to receive and note that urgent decision and move it. Have I a seconder?
Again, I'll second that, Chair.
Anyone wishing to raise anything on that urgent item? No, so it's been moved and seconded. If no one else indicates, I take it the Cabinet approve. No one else has indicated, so the Cabinet has approved and noted that decision. Item 5 is Cabinet reports. I have no Cabinet reports to give at this meeting, so that concludes items 1 to 5. Item 6 is outlined in the agenda pack, but it's a very good announcement to actually make. It's actually the desire and aspiration of the Leisure Trust and the Council to move forward with the portfolio of leisure buildings. As we're all aware, some of our buildings which the Leisure Trust run on our behalf to deliver first-class leisure active service across the borough are getting aged. Shall we say, at least the leisure centre down at Church is maybe 50 years or more old. And of course, Mercer Hall at Great Harwood is even older than that, even though it's been remodelled once before, becoming a swimming pool from a dance hall. The real issues in the report, which has been done by Hyndburn Leisure and by consultants, highlight the actual portfolio of buildings and what is required, and also the aspiration to renew. After all, we haven't seen any renewal probably since the building of Church Leisure Centre. So this is an important document. It outlines many different aspects of what is seen to be delivered in 2021, 2022 and 2023. But most importantly, there will be a portal launch and engagement with residents across the borough. But even more important will be the engagement with Great Harwood residents, as the document outlines, unfortunately, the position of Mercer Hall, where the building needs repurposing. It's outlived its legacy as such, and is not fit for purpose for a modern leisure centre. This is not new to the council, and especially in Great Harwood. If we look at Great Harwood Town Hall, that has been repurposed to a business function, and also at Churchfield House, where that has been repurposed to a charitable function. It's up to residents, when the portal is launched for consultation later in March, to come forward with options. And I'm sure the Leisure Trust will also be putting forward options to make sure there's engagement within the community of Great Harwood. There will be passion and desire to see what that building becomes. Now, when we look at that within the document, there is the aspiration for a replacement leisure centre, which will be located in the desired location of Wilson's, because that opens up the provision of outdoor, indoor and also recreational use on a large footprint, which the council has ownership of. So it's more straightforward in that location, and views will be sought on that. But the document outlines what will be there, a new pool and additional facilities in that location. But the document doesn't just address the major buildings within the Leisure Trust, but also has an agenda for community hubs across the borough, and also linking into other providers, including Hyndburn Academy and their aspiration to improve things. So there is a focus and a delivery. But also I want to announce that the council has outlined a bid to the Public Decarbonisation Fund. That was outlined to councillors earlier in the year when the Chief Executive of the Leisure Trust came to council last year. I'm pleased to announce that the council has been offered £2 million from that public sector decarbonisation fund. This is a massive achievement which will make not just certain buildings within the borough more efficient, energy saving, etc., but a great initiative, what was launched last year at full council and cabinet, which was the council's green agenda. This fund of £2 million, the vast majority will be utilised at Hyndburn Leisure Centre. Now, previously, each year, I have put aside, and am putting aside in this year's capital budget, £150,000 for dealing with the legacies of improvements what are required through our leisure centres, but specifically at church. By this year, that budget will be in the region of £850,000. And by doing the same next year, that's £1 million. That was primarily to replace the boilers which require replacing at leisure centre at church. But now with this funding coming forward of £2 million from the decarbonising fund, there isn't the requirement for that money to be used for that principle. And even if we added use of that principle, it wouldn't have been as efficient as what is going to be provided with the new airflow pump, which will make energy savings of 74% at that building. So it is absolutely marvellous that we've achieved this £2 million grant funding to deliver the improvements and make Hyndburn Leisure Centre 74% more energy efficient. But it also relieves the money what I did put aside for boiler replacements to be utilised in refurbishing the leisure centre portfolio. So as the document outlines, £10 million, which is what is required to deliver the plan over the next 3 years, we have already got 30% of that funding. When we look at what is the provision and the aspiration to deliver at Wilson's, we will be making further bids to Sports England and other bodies by the Leisure Trust. This is all about delivering a better service, better leisure provision, which was outlined last year due to obesity levels within the general population of Hyndburn. But since then, it's not just about the health inequalities, but the importance of we've seen dealing with the pandemic and making people become more healthy, more active, because by being more healthy, it gives you a better chance, not just in life, but also fighting, unfortunately, the pandemic and COVID virus, which unfortunately looks to be with us, not in the short term, and maybe longer, just like getting inoculations for flu. So it's a marvellous achievement that we've been successful in getting this £2 million to actually invest in green technology. And I'll be speaking on other green issues more in the full council on what the council is doing with our green agenda and delivering not just words but actions on what Hyndburn Council moved its climate emergency motion last year. So this is marvellous news. I know members may have questions on the report. It's a detailed report going through stage by stage. I mean, the vision in 2021 is to look at a community hub development at Clayton Civic Hall, which is a partnership utilising that underused resource. Stage 1 will also be about carbon reduction, which is deliverable because of the success of this bid. Also, application to Sport England and Strategic Facility Fund to deliver the aspirations at Wilson's playing fields. Community engagement, which I've outlined in March to identify a vision and future of Mercer Row Leisure Centre. But at the same time, you'll look at the capital report and see that the council is putting investment into the frontage of that important building on the High Street on Queen Street in Great Howard to make it more attractive, but needs that vision and what the people of Great Howard see for that building. And of course, it needs to be a business plan and sustainable for the Leisure Trust to operate, as what has been done previously with the Great Howard Town Hall and also Churchfield House. In the second phase in 2022, it's actually looking at actually delivering that new build in Clayton Moors at Wilson's playing fields, actually looking at additional community hubs, working with Hyndburn Academy to deliver their aspirations and other bodies. And finally, we have the vision to deliver the new facility by 2023 in Clayton Moors and the refurbishment of Hyndburn Leisure Centre and deliver community hubs across the borough, including at West End and also Twistle. There is a lot to be done within that timescale of 36 months. The issue is we've been successful on one public body bid. We now have to go forward with the Leisure Trust and make bids for other organisations to deliver this major investment of £10 million, probably not seen since the formation of the council in 1974 on specific leisure activity. And I say it's crucial at this time that we get the general population more active. Whether it was obesity before to address, now we've got COVID and viruses to address. But what the positive is, we all see one another actually doing more walking, getting out in fresh air more, and actually it's the ideal time to actually invest in these important public assets delivered by Hyndburn Leisure Trust for the future, not just of our generation, but future generations. So that's just very quickly. I'm sure members will have questions, so I'll move the report if I have a seconder.
I'll second that report, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions on the report? I've got Councillor Munsif Dad integrating.
Thank you, Miles, for that. I welcome the report and the detailed report that you've outlined. Hyndburn Leisure have done some consultation with its partners and the positive support that Hyndburn Leisure has got and the work that it delivers. All stakeholders are interested in continuing to work with Hyndburn Leisure because of the success. Through consultations, various themes have come forward, which I'm sure that as this moves forward, the hard-to-reach communities such as the BAME, older people and the children, Hyndburn Leisure will continue working with them to address the health inequalities, particularly post-COVID. And I also welcome the funding that has been coming forward. This is due to hard work of Hyndburn Leisure staff, especially the Lindsay. And I'd just like to thank everyone involved for their hard work, and we will be bearing the fruits in the future, hopefully. And if the partnership between the council and Hyndburn Leisure continues as it is, I'm sure that there will be success and achievements for everyone involved. So thanks very much, Miles.
Thank you very much, Munsif. Just quickly on some of the points what Munsif is alluded to. I mean, I just want to specifically say that the vision is to have the interactive portal for the public to look at the aspirations and what the Leisure Trust and the council want to deliver for residents of all ages, and that should be open on the portal on the 22nd of February. Then a consultation process between the 11th of March and the 2nd of April is envisaged, and that's all about investing in health improvement across Hyndburn, the development of a new leisure facility at Wilson's Playing Fields, the refurbishment of Hyndburn Leisure Centre, the repurposing of Mercer Leisure Centre site, and that's probably critical for the residents of Great Harwood to really engage on what they see the usage of that great building on Queen Street in Great Harwood. I've got Kathleen Platt indicating, Councillor.
Good afternoon, Miles. I note in the report that you're proposing a 4-lane swimming pool at Wilson's. Yes. You immediately exclude using this for any competitive swimming. Competitive swimming needs 6 lanes. So any income you would be hoping to generate from that is lost.
Thank you very much for that point, Councillor Pratt. The Leisure Trust are engaging with other bodies as well, and they've done their feasibility study on it. But I'm sure I'll pass that back to the Chief Executive of Hyndburn Leisure. But there are discussions regarding another pool in the borough, and engagement is with that also. So there'll be an evolving feast of partnerships, not just with Hyndburn Leisure, but many other providers, the academies, Accrington Stanley Community Trust, and that will be coming forward of their visions also to deliver facilities which the borough hasn't seen in the past, and it's something we can all get round, because Hyndburn shouldn't be left behind other areas which have massive investment in their sports facilities, and 10 million is a fantastic amount to actually put into that. The council is behind that, but we want to see funding from other public bodies to lessen that overall burden. But the point you make will be fed back. I'm sure the Chief Executive of the Leisure Trust will give a response to that on their aspiration and how they're utilising pools across the borough.
Thank you, Miles.
Right, there's no one else indicating at this time, so it gives me great pleasure to move the report, which I did. It was seconded by Councillor Cox. Are we all content with that? If no one raises their hand, I'll take that we're all content. We're all content with that. It's been moved and seconded, and it's been approved by the Cabinet. And I look forward to delivering on this positive step forward in activity, recreational use in the borough. And I'll speak more about it at the full council later in the month. So that concludes that item. We now go on to item 7, the financial position. And I hand you over to the portfolio holder, Councillor Joyce Plummer.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. The Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for December 2020. The predicted level of overspend on the budget has fallen to 392,000 from 919,000 reported at the last meeting, as our savings on our core expenditure outside of COVID-19 continued to be generated across the council. The expenditure on COVID continues to be the only reason an overspend is predicted this year. And if the extra costs and damage to the council's income from COVID has not occurred, the forecast for 2021 should be a substantial underspend. The underspend may fall still further as we have applied for assistance from the government to help Hyndburn Leisure, which has suffered a significant loss in income this year due to COVID-19. And if this money arrives, it will lower the amount we have set aside in the budget forecast to assist them directly with additional council fundings. I move the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Joyce Plummer. I'll second the report. I just really want to state, this has probably been the most difficult year for the council since the formation of Hyndburn, since 1974. And in local government terms, dealing with, unfortunately, a national crisis of the pandemic, we haven't seen something on local government probably since the Second World War. And when we think how the council has managed its resources, it's due to a strong financial stable background, which has been for more than a decade. This will be the first time in 18 years that the budget for 2020-21 will be overspent. Now, of course, if COVID hadn't occurred, we would have a massive underspend. So it shows the achievements of the council and all its staff on trying to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 on the general standing of the council. But at the same time, highlight that funding has come from government to help the council. And of course, we'll continue to lobby the government if there is an overspend and that the budget could actually balance accordingly. So it is in unprecedented times. As I say, it's the first time in 18 years there's an overspend, and it's credit to the strong financial management that we've got strong reserves to actually weather that in unprecedented times. So that concludes my little short speech on that. So it's been moved and seconded. If anyone wishes to speak on the item, please indicate. No one's indicated, so it's been moved and seconded. I'll simply move it on block if no one indicates they have any. That's fine. Everyone's fine with that. So it's been moved and seconded, and it's been approved by the Cabinet. So that concludes item 7, and we swiftly go back to Councillor Joyce Plummer, the portfolio holder for finance, for the medium-term financial strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. The medium-term financial strategy. COVID-19 has dominated 2020-21 and will potentially dominate much, if not all, of 21-22. The pandemic adds to the uncertainty of the financial forecast for the next 3 years as set out in this report. It has already been difficult to predict the government's financial future due to the government's proposed fair funding review, which is expected to remove revenue support grant funding of 1.5 million as a source of funding for the council and see changes made to how much business rates we are allowed to retain. This creates a big challenge in 22-23, requiring the council to look to find around 2 million of savings in that year to balance its budget. However, the good news is that if we can achieve this level of saving for that year, the following year, 2023-24, shows a relative small amount of savings will be needed of 100,000. And going forward, this could become the norm from that point. This does not, however, assume that the council does achieve revenue growth from council tax and business rates in the latter years of the medium-term financial strategy. And if these do not occur and instead flatline, as the economy stagnates as a result of COVID-19, the savings pressure on the council would amount to more than 3 million in 2022-23, with a further 1.25 million required the following year. At the opposite end of the spectrum, if council tax and business rate growth is good and the government does not withdraw all of our revenue support grant immediately in 2022-23 or replaces it with other grants, we should be in a position for a few years in which we can operate a surplus budget. The range between the pessimistic and optimistic scenarios is significant at over 5.4 million, reflecting the large amount of uncertainty the council currently faces due to the combination of COVID-19 and the government's financial review of local authority funding. The position around the robustness of the forecast should improve as the year progresses, and we would expect that once the government announces the detail around the new funding levels next December, the ability to plan ahead effectively based on robust figures would greatly improve. Until then, the conclusion from the medium-term financial strategy is that the council should be cautious in its approach to spending and not take on significant new commitments while looking to protect its reserves in case what emerges is a scenario which leans more to the pessimistic model. I move the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plummer. I'll second the report and just generally just pick out a few points from the medium-term financial strategy. I mean, as we are aware, as Joyce has just highlighted, is that 1.5 million, which was planned to be taken, the last part of the local government grant from government taken away. Since 2010, we've had to make savings in the region of over 5 million. The 1.5 was the final amount, which was announced way back in 2010 by George Osborne of the phasing out of the local government grant. That would have put a great burden on the council if that had happened in this financial budget being proposed. Of course, the government has not done that. We'll have to wait and see, as Councillor Plummer outlines, what happens with fair funding. But as is outlined, there is pessimistic, optimistic, and we won't know until next December whether it's good news, expected news, or bad news. One would hope that it's good news, or at least expected news, and that we can deal with it and then move forward a lot more easily in future years, which is outlined in the medium-term financial strategy. So that's just briefly from me. The document is, as I always say each time it's prepared, is an easy read for everyone to understand what the forecasts are, where the council is, and I welcome all members to actually have a read of the document, because it does give that foresight into where the council is going to be and what it has to deal with. So it's been moved and seconded. Anyone wishing to raise any questions on the medium-term financial strategy? No one is indicating. So it's been moved and seconded. If no one else indicates, I take it that the Cabinet approve. No one else has indicated, so that's been moved and seconded and approved by Cabinet. And now we move on to item 9. Again, it's back to Councillor Plummer, and it's the Prudential Indicators Treasury and Management Investment Strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Performance Indicators and Treasury Management Strategy 2021-22 to 2023-24. This is the standard report required each year by the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, which sets out how the council will manage its loans, investment and cash position over the next 12 months. It sets guidance and limits on officers' actions to protect the council's long-term financial well-being. The report sets out that we are continuing our previous approach of paying down debt when we can, avoiding new borrowing whilst still committing to an appropriate size capital programme of investment and investing any surplus cash we generate with organisations that have little scope to default on payment, even if a better rate of return could be achieved elsewhere. We expect interest rates to remain at the current low levels until after 2023. And as the economy recovers from the impact of COVID-19 and the country deals with its new position in relation to the European Union, I move this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plummer. I'll second the report. Councillor Plummer has given a detailed response of that. I mean, earlier in the year, the Cabinet and myself discussed the future budget, and due to the pressures on the council, we decided in a rollover budget. So all the actual departments received the same figures as the previous year because of the stretched resources and the impact on COVID on all departments. This has been able to do because of the strong financial position we're in with reserves and the capability to make any over spends within the reserves. Of course, lobbying of government will be, of course, important to make sure that if there is any overspends due to COVID or other impacts, that we lobby on behalf of government. If we go through not this budget which I'm moving today, but actually the tail end of, unfortunately, our budget of 2021, 2020-21, we can see that much has been done to actually protect the local economy, protect residents, and also help the council. I mean, some of the grants which have been given out have been crucial to businesses. And of course, there's been many given out. And I think in total, we're looking at 35.5 million. We've probably another 1.5 million to be given out by the end of the financial year. Even with, shall we say, other grants to the community and the council tax, that probably equates to another 2.5 million received from government. So we're not far off £40 million of government grant being given to businesses, community and the council. If it wasn't for COVID and the council had received 40 million, we would have a transformational agenda, whether it was in Accrington Town Centre, within our leisure centres. But of course, that's dreaming. The issue is the nation was suffering from a national crisis. The council and its staff and volunteers have all come together to deliver that. And we have tried to work in partnership, whatever political party, whatever community group, and we've all pulled together. So it is a big thank you for the last financial year, even though we're discussing the budget for the future financial year. And I'll probably say more about that at full council. But I think people do need to understand the workload, what everyone has been doing, and the great work of all the volunteers and groups who've all come together. And let's hope we don't lose that, because it's a great credit to Hyndburn. It is a fantastic credit that differences have been put to one side, and we've all understood the need to work together from whatever group you come from. So I just really wanted to mention that. I mean, the revenue budget is outlined. I'm sure many people will go through this and there'll be many questions at scrutiny, but it's a straightforward one. I'll probably discuss more about it, but the important thing is that it's a rise of £5 1p. Now, last year we rose it by £5, so it's an increase on the last rise of a penny. If we go over the last 12 years, we've only had an increase in the council tax for 5 of those. 7 of those, there was no council tax increase. So if you look at Hyndburn and average our council tax increase over 12 years, it's been 1%. 1%. As I've stated previously over the years, we are one of the very, very few, even acknowledged by the Tax Alliance website, has been one in single figures for keeping the council tax low while delivering excellent services. Because when surveys are done of the public, the services what list tier of local government give, not the lowest tier, but the middle tier. We've got a parish council below us, but the middle tier, the services, whether it's waste, whether it's the crematorium and cemeteries, whether it's the parks, always come back high and complimentary. And it's great credit to those staff, especially in the turbulent times we have lived in. But bearing in mind, since 2010, we have taken out over £5 million because of the phasing out of the local government grant. So it is credit to everyone with the ability to actually move a rollover budget because of decisions made over many years to make us strong and stable. Other authorities aren't making a rollover budget, they're having to deal with their own issues. And so that quickly sums it up. I mean, I'll go into more length at the full council meeting, but it's been moved and seconded. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the general revenue budget? There's no one indicated, so I suppose for the residents watching this, what it equates to if you're in a Band D property is a rise of 10p a week. And for the vast majority of our residents who live in A band, it's 7p a week for the services you receive off list tier of local government. And that has been able to be kept down at that rate because of the decisions made by the administration and strong financial control. If we had raised by the rate of other authorities, it will be 10% more from the years where we've had no increase or just 5 increases over the last 12 years. So it's been moved and seconded. All those who don't have any objection, if you don't indicate, I take it that we received the revenue report. No one's indicated, so that has been moved and seconded and confirmed by the Cabinet. So thank you very much for that. We now go on to item 11, which again is Councillor Joyce Plummer, which is the General Fund Capital.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. The General Revenue Budget 21-22. The Council intends to set its budget for 21-22 at the same level as for 2021, to 11,227,000. Council tax revenue is expected to be down as more people switch to claiming financial support and others struggle to pay. But the fall will largely be offset by 2 one-off grants from the government and a 2% increase in council tax. This will see a Band D council tax increase by £5.01 over the year. And for most properties in Hyndburn, which are Band A properties, for council tax purposes, that annual increase will be £3.34 a year, or less than 7 pence per week. Business rate income is expected to be almost exactly the same as last year, though this might fluctuate in year if the recovery from COVID-19 proves difficult for the local economy. The decision by the government not to end the payment of revenue support grant this year has significantly assisted the council by providing 1.5 million of funding we were expecting to lose. A major assumption in the budget is that any additional costs falling on the council due to COVID-19 or any lost income from the pandemic is funded by the government. They have initially provided a one-off COVID grant for 21-22 of 592,000. This looks potentially sufficient when it was announced in mid-December, as it seemed at that point the virus was on its way out. However, the resurgence of the pandemic in the final few days before Christmas and the likelihood that measures to continue the virus will need to continue until the summer or beyond now potentially indicates that the 592,000 may not be enough. Decisions on how to allocate this additional grant will be made in March and early April, when we better understand the potential falls on this money. It is likely that it will be designated to help finance the work of Hyndburn Hub in protecting and supporting those struggling with the crisis. To help meet the extra costs incurred by the council around supporting the national effort around combating the virus through track and trace and enforcement work. Helping to cover the loss of income the council faces due to COVID-19 and assisting Hyndburn Leisure as it rebuilds its customer base. It is likely that 21-22 will be a tough financial year for the council, and it may be the case that the most pressures we face because of COVID will not all be met by the government, and an overspend position may emerge in such circumstances. However, we would expect to be able to manage this within the overall financial position of the council, and given our levels of reserve, we should be able to cope with such pressures. We will, of course, monitor all this closely throughout the year and report on financial position each cabinet meeting. I move the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Joyce Plummer. I mean, I preempted your speech probably with my Treasury Management interlope. So, I mean, I won't go through all it again, but I think what you've stated is the achievement of the council. Not just for the council, but all the staff. And of course, dealing with the major issue which all local government is dealing with, which is the pandemic, the impact on the council with that. But by setting this budget, by moving a 1.99% increase, which I alluded is only the 5th time in 12 years, and if we average all that out, it's less than 1%. We also highlight the likelihood of an overspend on this year's budget, which will be taken care of by reserves, but at the same time we will lobby government for future payments, and hopefully one of those, which is the Leisure Trust, due to their closure, if that comes in, then that call on reserves will be lessened. But of course we've now got to look the year ahead, and due to the strong reserves, if there is the unfortunate position of having an overspend, we can manage it. It's not written down, but it is a risk. But taking that to one side again, the residents of Hyndburn can see that we've raised the council tax over a decade at roughly 1%, which I think is a major achievement. Now, I'm sure members will probably want to raise questions on the revenue, so I won't delay them if they want to ask questions. Any questions? There's no questions this time. They're probably saving them up for scrutiny. Oh, sorry, there is one. Councillor Marlene Howarth. Marlene, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Me now. So sorry about that. You actually just started to say what I was going to say. There is a lot of questions that we have, will probably have, which we will bring up at council, because unfortunately some of us haven't had the paperwork yet. I got mine about half an hour ago. I'm reading it as I'm speaking, And that is one thing that I would like to bring up about the lateness of reports that we get, so that we have the same time to absorb the results, these reports, that the controlling group have. That's really all I want to say, Miles. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. You should have it. You were on the circulation list. There was an email sent on Friday with all the budget papers for you to look over the weekend. You may have missed it or whatever, but you were on the circulation list with all the budget papers on an email sent out by the member officer, and it was sent to yourself and Councillor Pratt. I mean, the budget papers itself have only come through the letterbox to me today, but of course the papers have been digitally. I'm sure you'll have plenty of times to go through, and members can ask questions at scrutiny and also at full council.
Miles, can I also bring that up? From what I understand from an email that I got, it would appear that you have to put a question forward by email to attend the scrutiny meeting. Does that apply to councillors as well? I was under the impression that councillors could attend these meetings anyway, but I thought that the budget overview and scrutiny would have been something that we would all want to attend, but maybe not want to put a question forward at that time. What is the position regarding that?
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. I'll certainly get clarification to you immediately after this meeting from the member officer. I'm sure that all members on both committees, I think it's simply trying to make sure that questions are known and can be asked, and I'm sure every councillor, if they wish to attend, will be able to attend in the lobby room. We'll get that clarification to you, Councillor Howarth, immediately after the close of this meeting.
Thank you.
Right, that's concluded the general fund revenue. It's been moved and seconded. If no one else indicates, I take it it's been approved. So the revenue budget for 2021-22 has been approved by the Cabinet. Thank you very much for that. We now go on to item 11, which is the general capital. And again, that is Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. The capital budget 21-22. Report outlines the Cabinet's proposals in relation to the capital programme 21-22. This year, the programme will be 2.3 million and funded from existing resources and external support. It will continue our previous commitments to continue to invest in services and improvement in our building and infrastructure, while avoiding the need to finance this by borrowing. The biggest item this year will again be almost £1 million to assist those who are disabled or with other medical conditions to continue to live in their own homes by providing grants to them to adapt their properties so that they can maintain their independence for as long as possible and live where they have always done so. There is also money to upgrade the council's core customer services system to better improve and widen the range of services that can be provided to the public directly via the internet. Significant additional funds are also provided to allow work to be undertaken on the fabric of Accrington Town Hall and Accrington Market Hall to stop these buildings from deteriorating and to ensure they are effectively maintained and preserved for future generations. There are also funds to invest in our leisure buildings to modernise and improve their use of energy and reduce our carbon footprints, as well as enhance the facilities for the users of these buildings. Various other projects to improve our accommodation are also listed, along with a number of other smaller projects this year. I move this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plummer. I second the report. I mean, it outlines quite clearly the different projects and funding streams. Of course, the major one is the funding to keep people within their own homes, which is disabled adaptations funding, and that's nearly £1 million. All the other items, if members have questions, more details can be given. But of course, as we live in a more digital world, it is very important that the council, as we're all now in a digital bubble as such, is that investment in IT is critical for the council to function. So another major investment is that 250,000. But of course, other parts of that structure are outlined. But again, it does go down to the basics, what all councillors like to see, which is new playgrounds and investments such as that. But also, we have to also bear in mind health and safety. So when we look at the stoneworks of our buildings, whether it's the market hall or the town hall, it's to make sure that they don't fall on someone's head, and we have that major risk and liability of being sued. So there are each point a relevant reason for each of these items to be chosen. Many, many years ago, the capital budget was a substantial. It would be over 10 million or up to 15 million. But of course, over the years, with local government being reduced in financial terms, but even so, this budget, this capital, is given by not reducing our revenue and having an impact in our overall revenue budget. So it is an important one. I'll probably speak more on it at full council because of the green initiatives and etc. I mean, the funding for leisure is there, 150,000. It was the same principle that I set aside previously, 55,000 for vehicle replacement. It's not having a shock that we have to do something in 5 years and we haven't put money to one side. So that has been the all driving force of this administration, is to look at what our future costs will be and make sure we put money to one side. Now, previously, we've done that by actually paying off our short-term debts. In the longer term, there's only the long-term debts, but at this time, it's not relevant to pay them back because of the call upon the finances and also the overall delivery of services of the council. So it's a brief statement on the capital budget. More will be said at full council, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions at scrutiny. So it's been seconded. Any questions, please? One person has raised their hand, but I can't see who it is. It's gone down now.
It's me.
Right.
Yeah, can I just thank Mr. Joe McIntyre and his staff for the excellent work and the time they spent arranging the budget. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joyce, and for your work as well and the team. Now, what we've got and been told today is the basics of our capital and revenue, the outlook with the medium-term financial strategy, and where we are with this year's budget. Of course, at full council, it's more about the aspiration, our green agenda, our local plan, which is about delivering housing and employment across the borough, and also our vision for our town centres and what work we would be doing with stakeholders and the public on delivering the aspiration for this borough, not for today, but for the next generation as well. So that'd be more outlined at full council, but the basics of our capital and revenue budget have been moved and seconded today with an increase of 1.99%, which is alluded to. The average for most people living in A band is 7p a week and in D band 10p. And as I've outlined, in the last 12 years, this is the only 5th time this council has actually raised council tax. And if you take it over a decade, that is less than 1%. We are one of the very, very few councils who can say that in England. So thank you very much for joining the Cabinet this afternoon. And I look forward to seeing you at scrutiny going through the budget papers and also at full council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Miles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.